Hey, I'm Cory Heim, and this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny. Brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 mud terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today. Welcome to The Skinny. We're excited to bring on a young gun here. The game is played, well, when the manufacturers take a look at you and decide that they want to bring you underneath their umbrella. That is the goal for every young racer, and that's exactly what has happened here with young Cory Heim. He is off to a fabulous start in his career and is making some real noise in the late model world, the super lates, now up into ARCA, and has even made a truck debut. We welcome you to the show there, Cory.
Hey guys, thanks for having me today.
By the way, congratulations on a fabulous run just one day ago.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. I appreciate it. We definitely had high expectations coming into this weekend, and we executed well.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get into your career here, but you got to walk me through that last restart. Did you see any of the stuff that was going on there beside you with your teammate and Ty?
Yeah, actually I did. I've had that question asked to me a couple times now, and I could see it a little bit out the left side window, and I was looking on that restart. So, I didn't see exactly what happened. I knew that Chandler was going to be aggressive on that restart, and of course Ty would too, because ultimately it would lead to the race win there at the end. So I saw them get together a little bit, and the 18 lost all of his momentum, and my job at that point was to go down and try to break the rest of his momentum and get out front, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, good hard racing, and I know there's a bit of a rivalry there brewing between you two young guns, and rightfully so. I mean, you're both very, very competitive. I would expect nothing less than that out of both of you, to be quite honest with you. So it's a lot of fun to watch you guys battle, and to think that this is just the beginning, man. You two guys could be battling for the rest of your careers like this.
Yeah, Ty's a great competitor, and it's been an interesting year so far. We started off on a really good note, and then we kind of leveled out a little bit behind him. He's been, obviously really on fire for the past 5 or 6 weeks, and he's won, I think, pretty much the last, 4 of the last 5 races or something like that. So, get the win this weekend and get that clean air like we needed at the end, and have that opportunity to execute, and being able to bring home the checkered flag when he's been really hard to beat these past couple weeks has given us a lot of confidence going into Elko.
Yeah, you guys should really pat yourselves on the back. I mean, listen, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know, maybe for the fans out there. I mean, you're taking on a cup team. It is what it is. You race who you have to race. You want to race and beat the best no matter who or where you are, and you're certainly getting a good taste of that, and you guys have proven very capable. I think you should really give yourselves a pat on the back, and, for Venturini Motorsports, I think they really stepped up their game, since 2017, 18, in the last couple of years, man. They've really invested back in themselves. They've got some great equipment now. They have great drivers, and I think the results are showing. They've got great talent underneath the tent. Your crew chief Shannon has been with the best of the best all along the way and has been successful. And Kevin Reed, and of course Billy himself. I mean, it's a hell of a team you've got there for sure. And there's no question, man, you can wheel a car.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like you said, we got a great group over at Venturini Motorsports. You got Shannon Rush, Kevin Reed, Billy Venturini, Bill and Kathy, and all the guys over there that work really hard, and women as well. We didn't do bad by any means. We finished second and third for the most part, and had that one 7th place finish in Mid-Ohio. But we came into the year expecting wins, and we've got a couple to this weekend so far. So we've got, I think, 12 races left in the year, and we got a lot of more opportunities to get some more wins. And ultimately, of course, we want to win the championship. But I think everyone's on the same page over there. They want to go win races, win the championship, and so far they've been working their butts off every day and night. And they've had some late nights and early mornings trying to beat that 18 car. And this weekend they had something to pay off. So looking for the rest of the year for sure.
Yeah, and you know, it's going to raise their game, right? I mean, when you're racing somebody like Gibbs and you guys are all digging and you're doing as good as you're doing, it's just going to make you work a little bit harder, right? So it's going to bring the level up of Venturini's team as well, because they're all going to chase it just that much harder. And yeah, I couldn't agree with your consistency anymore. I mean, the first 8 rounds, and you've been, you know, in the top three every round except for that one, you know, where you finished seventh, like you mentioned. But even more so, I don't think you've only been out of the top 10 in ARCA ever, and I think that was because of a window net, if I'm not mistaken, when you finished 11th. So, I mean, you've had incredible consistency here in the ARCA series.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of my strong suits, and it's been, it's been overall kind of my one thing that's really kept me in the battle of points this year. Of course, Ty has more wins to his name this year. And we, came into this year, 3 wins so far is no slump by any means, but Ty's been really good. So his one bad race at Talladega, I think he finished outside of the top 20, is really what's kind of kept us in it so far. And that's, that's part of what the ARCA playoff, or not even playoff, it's just the points format. We have 20 races straight up. There's no playoffs, there's no elimination, stuff like that. So you really have to make every single week count. And, in the top three NASCAR series, you can win one race and have an awful rest of the year and still be in the playoffs, and still have a shot at that championship. While in ARCA, you have to put 20 solid races together. So, my mindset going into every week is, of course, to win the race, but you also have to kind of consider, if you don't have the best race car, you can't go out there and, do something crazy and completely take yourself out of it, because that's going to really, put yourself out of it for the rest of the year if you have a really bad week. And, the one race that we, finished outside of the top three, we had we had a mishap on the restart, and then we had a pit road penalty as well. So it was just kind of one thing on top of another. And, we rebounded and came back and won Pocono. So, look back at what my mistakes were at Mid-Ohio and why we struggled, as far as finishing wise that week. And I look back as a driver and kind of realized I messed up and I needed to do better. And we came back and rebounded with a win.
Awesome stuff. I mean, and it seems like you really excel at the super speedways. You adapted to that very quickly. Did it just feel good right out the bat?
Yeah, I mean, I practice on iRacing and then the Toyota Sim as well. I think there's a lot of people around me that were telling me kind of how to get around a super speedway. We got a very limited amount of practice. I think we got that one test session 2 weeks before the race, and then all in all, just kind of listening to the people around me, and I went out and executed.
So talking about your sim career, and we'll focus on that in a little bit, because it's super cool as well, and certainly where this industry is going. But even with all the seat time in the sim, and I know you have a ton of it, you still don't get what you get when you're inside of that car on a super speedway, feeling that air, feeling that draft, knowing what the other cars are doing around you. But it seems like you've adapted to it very quickly, picked it right up.
Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that. Nothing really beats actual in-car experience, the cockpit of an actual race car. But, things like iRacing and the Toyota Sim do help me a lot. Without that, I don't think I would pick up on a couple things here and there that I might make a mistake in real life. And, those reps and those extra laps around the track kind of help me, realize what I could possibly make mistakes on, and kind of just execute on that with consistency and just, overall a good mindset going into the weekend, kind of just having that confidence that I know what the actual racetrack's going to do, and the super speedway side of things, what other cars are going to do. Watching film helps as well, what the characteristics of some race car drivers might do, and how to, maybe avoid some people that might be a little bit harder to get around and things like that. So, just having that mindset and that preparation before a race is really big for me.
You've had the same spotter, I'm told, for about 4 years, Lloyd Garner, who I believe is also now spotting in Cup as well for the 00, if I'm not mistaken. But how much of a comfort zone does Lloyd give you inside of your ear whenever you're in those situations?
Yeah, Lloyd's been awesome. He's been a big part of my success this year. And, like you mentioned, he's been my spotter for almost 4 years. So we really know each other well, and what I like and what he likes in me. So we merge together really well, and it's very important to have that relationship with the spotter on super speedways. So he definitely gives me the comfort, and to the point where I can trust him. Like if he calls me clear and it's really close, I can trust that. I can trust that gap, and I can trust that call by Lloyd. So, with a newer spotter that might not have as much experience as Lloyd does, I don't know if I can trust him enough to fill that gap and, make that move that I would be confident enough to do with Lloyd. So, I think that's the main thing for me. And, Lloyd's been around for a while. As you mentioned, he's a Cup spotter as well. So obviously he's good enough to, be in a Cup car, and he comes back down to ARCA and he's really doing well with me. So, Like I mentioned earlier, he's been a huge part of my success this year.
Yeah, it's that chemistry, right? I mean, all the pieces to the puzzle, as you mentioned before, Shannon Rush and Kevin Reed and Billy Venturini and Lloyd. I mean, all the pieces of the puzzle. It's that team chemistry, which is what really allows you to succeed and chase a championship. And you guys clearly have that going on, man. It's really exciting to be part of a program like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're going to keep on working away at it and try to click off another couple of wins here, at least, keep ourselves in the lead of the points battle here. So they're going to keep on working hard, and we got a long stretch of races coming up in July. I think we have like 3 or 4 short tracks in 5 weeks. So that's going to be really exciting for me.
So let's take a step back, man. Tell me how you got going in this whole business, this whole racing craziness that we all have so much affection for. So how old were you, and what was your first efforts?
Yeah, so I started when I was 5 years old, and before that, I've always been a NASCAR fan ever since I, pretty much was 1 year old, and I was able to even kind of comprehend what I was looking at. So me and my dad would always watch it, and we grew up pretty close to Elmore Speedway, so I'd go to a couple races, and my dad raced a little bit of Legends car stuff as well when I was a young kid, and I would go watch it Lanier Motor Speedway. But I got started in quarter midgets. My dad surprised me with a quarter midget when I was 5 years old on Christmas. And, we tested at the local track in Cumming, Georgia at Bill Thomas Raceway. And I raced that for, I want to say, about 8 years, honestly. So I spent a lot of time in quarter midgets. And then I moved up to a Bandolero and a Legends car. That's kind of where I really learned how to race. Like you understand how to drive when you're in quarter midgets, but I don't think you truly understand how to race until you go through that Bandolero and Legends car phase that you see a lot of NASCAR drivers go through that have made it in the sport. So after that, I went into late models, some super late models and pro late models, which I still do. I'm actually going to race a race of that this weekend. So I've been doing that for about 4 or 5 years now. And then we made the step up to ARCA and that one truck start that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, so we should touch base and let the fans at home know Cory is 18 years of age. With a birthday coming up here next weekend, I think maybe Monday, right? July 5th. So happy early birthday to you there, my friend. You'll be the wise old age of 19 years old. It's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll be right back after this. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. When did you catch Toyota's eye?
I think this is my second year in the program this year. So I started in ARCA actually with a different team with Chadbine Racing, which was a Ford team at the time, and really just didn't have the success that I wanted. We finished, borderline top 5 every week, but we were fifth to sixth place car. And I was also living in Georgia at the time, so I didn't have a really good opportunity to move, go to the shop and, spend some time with the guys. I didn't have the greatest relationship with my team just because I really had no other choice but to just show up to the racetrack and race. So I graduated high school last year. I moved up, of course, got a part with Toyota. I became a part of their program. And, ever since then, I feel like it's kind of taken off a little bit. We started even winning late model races, and that's, outside of the ARCA side of it, of course, and won the one ARCA race in Kansas later in the year last year. And I think ever since I've been a part of the program, I've bettered myself as a driver, in and out of the race car. And, my work ethic has gotten a lot better as well. So these guys have really pushed me to be the best version of myself, and I think this year it's been great so far, and I'm hoping to improve myself every year I'm a part of this program.
So I'm going to rephrase that a little bit because clearly, you're stepping up to the plate here now that you're underneath that Toyota umbrella. But what do you think it was? What do you think you did before you became a development driver for Toyota? What do you think it was that you did so well that had? Was it Jack Irving that made the call? I mean, who was it? When do you think Toyota looked at you and said, "You know what? This kid's got a real shot. We need to take him under our umbrella and see if we can develop him." What was that success level that got you there?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little of it was just, every weekend we'd go against those Venerini cars, and I feel like we were right there with them pretty much every weekend with, maybe not quite as good as a car that they had. So I feel like we really kind of proved, or I proved my worth against those guys. And, Billy Venerini and Jack Irving are really good friends. So, I mean, I guess they might have talked a little bit about, the consistency and success I had in my first year in ARCA. And I think, they gave me a shot last year with 7 races. I didn't race a lot last year with them, but I think we had a lot of success in the limited amount of starts that I had. So, that kind of at that point proved that I could, run up there, run up front with the top guys in ARCA and even trucks.
Yeah, I've spoke with Jack Irving off and on for I don't know maybe the better part of 10 years, and my guess is Jack Irving knew exactly who you were before you ever got to ARCA. He's pretty switched on, and he's looking at those young guns all the time. I mean, I've had him tell me he's looking at kids, 12 years old, 12 and 13 years old, and getting them in the program. Certainly keeping an eye on them, and then. I also know that you ran really well, in the pro lates and the super lates, and 16 years old, running nationally, and nearly won the Martinsville 300, right, when you were 17 years old.
Yeah, I definitely like to say that I did win it. It was a controversial finish at the end there, and I think I did win it, and then pretty much everyone else agreed that I did. But that's part of racing. I mean, you're going to have controversial stuff, but we did have a lot of success when I first started in the late model stock stuff, and I actually ran full time last year in the late model stock side of things in Cars Tour, and we had a pretty successful year. We won a race and won a couple local races as well throughout the year. I think I ran 20 races total, and I think I won 3 or 4 of them. So, overall a good year. And I think that's also taught me a lot about how to race a heavy stock car. And that's how I also got my start in a heavy stock car as well. So it's fun to return to your roots and kind of see how you shape up against those good guys in late models. And I feel like, every time you go back down to that rank, I mean, those guys are just as good as some of the guys who are in NASCAR. So it's just as hard, if not harder, to win a big late model race than it is to win an ARCA or a truck race.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, what happens as it becomes more affordable, the talent level goes up, right? And the field gets a little deeper, and let's face it, super lates are not a cheap car to run, but in comparison, much less money than an ARCA car or certainly a Cup car. But yeah, when you get in those super late ranks, I mean, you have guys that have been pounding around in there their whole careers, and I mean, are vicious good. With a ton of experience. So yeah, when you show up and do well there, and that's kind of why I was asking you, what do you think it was that made Toyota notice you? My guess is Jack Irving was very aware of who you were and seeing that you had success, at the late model ranks, because it's very important to him that you do well at that level. I know, like the K&N stuff was very important to him. He wanted to see his drivers do well at that level, and he wanted to see them inside of cars a lot, many times a year. So my guess is that was a big part of him making a decision to bring you on board, and then seeing you do well, like you said, on the ARCA car. I think it all does work nicely together. But I couldn't agree with you more, man. There's some real talent in the super late ranks for sure.
Yeah, and I think the late model side of things, while they might not get you a ride quite in the ARCA series or the truck series, it's very rare for that to happen. I do think that definitely accounts for some of the reasoning of some funding that gets placed towards you in an ARCA or a late model, or I'm sorry, an ARCA or a truck car as well. So someone's always watching your every move, and you got to really execute, whether you're doing just a local late model stock race or a big truck race or something like that. Someone's always watching. So that's something that I've really abided by.
Just the world that you're growing up in doesn't even allow you to be a kid anymore. I mean, you were in the professional ranks pretty early on. You have to act like a professional, which involves the entire business side of it, the social media side of it, obviously the racing side of it. It all ties in together, and they want the perfect package, So you have to give some stuff up that your buddies might have been able to go do that you couldn't do, but the payoff is, hopefully a professional race car driver at the Cup level, I'm sure, is your goal. So, yeah, hats off to you, man, because it's not easy being a kid these days. It's not easy being involved in social media. And when Billy tells you something like that, there's a lot of jealous people out there. They want to see you do something wrong. They want to see you make a bad step and try to take advantage of you that way too. So there's a lot of positives, but there's some negatives there. And yeah, man, you're walking through a minefield, if you will. So, and everybody's hoping you come out of the other side, on top. It's not an easy task, man. My hat's off to you.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's not easy to be, doing what we're doing, but at the same time, there's a lot of people who wish they were doing what I was doing. So sure, you're always gone pretty much every weekend, and I'm going to be completely honest. Like I never went to a high school prom or anything like that. No high school events because I was always at a racetrack. So regardless of that, I've loved every second of my racing career for the last 3 or 4 years, and especially in the late model and ARCA stuff. This is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be in this position, and Toyota Racing's done everything they can to put me in this position, and I've loved every second of it. So just extremely grateful for where I'm at in my career right now, and I hope we can continue to build on it and hopefully get through the ranks.
So let's talk about your sim career, because I know, fortunately, when you get underneath that Toyota umbrella, you also get access to that incredible simulator that they have. But then, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you also do a lot of sim time for Kyle Busch as well on his truck program. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I think, for the most part, we're working towards his races specifically, and he only has about 5 of them this year. So me and Marty Lindley, as the crew chief of the 51 truck this year, have done a lot of work to try to make sure that Kyle's truck is perfect for him. And, it's been kind of an up and down year for him in the truck and Xfinity side of things this year. But, I've done everything I can to try to make sure that, he's happy with his truck. And I think for the most part, he has been. So, the Toyota simulator is great. I think it's close to the real thing as you're going to get with the current, technology that's presented to him. So, I go pretty much 2 times a week, and they're 3.5-hour sessions. So I spend roughly 7 hours a week trying to make sure my car is going to be good or Kyle's truck's going to be good throughout the weekend. And for the most part, it's pretty simple, but sometimes it can get a little bit stressful when you're not finding that right balance or anything like that. So for the most part, it's simple, but sometimes it can be stressful as well.
So let me ask you a question, because maybe I misunderstood. So I thought the Toyota simulator was in one facility, and Kyle Busch's sim was in a different facility. Do you do all the work on one?
It's all in the same thing. It's all in one simulator at TRD. So never have to move, have to go to the same place every time, and it's all pretty simple as far as that goes.
Gotcha. So I've also heard, and I'm kind of curious if there's any truth to this, I've also heard that there are times when they're looking for real-time data. In other words, let's just say, Kyle got a win here this past weekend as well. So I've heard that during a race, sometimes people will get on a sim and try a setup to see if it'll work a little bit better, relay that back to the crew chief real time during the race, and when they come in to make a pit stop, will possibly make that change to the car if it's available.
Well, for the most part, they will do all of that prior to the weekend. So they will run through every scenario that could happen that's realistic. If Kyle is complaining about a certain area of the racetrack that he's struggling with in practice or in the race, the crew chief or the car chief will run that in the simulator and see what adjustment they need to make that truck neutral again. So they'll run that all previous and implement it into the truck in real time, like you said, but they won't actually physically get on a sim and put the setup in and everything. They'll have that all set up, and the preparation behind that is pretty insane. You spend throughout all the KBM drivers, they probably spend about 15 to 20 hours a week before a race weekend to make sure that they can run every possible scenario to get it prepared for the race weekend.
We've been so my son competes in sports cars, and we've had a good relationship with Toyota. And we've been trying to get him on that sim for, I want to say, about 2 years, but it hasn't happened. Based off of this interview with you, it sounds like the schedule for that sim could not be packed any tighter.
Yeah, before I started doing stuff for Venerini Motorsports and for Kyle, I struggled myself to get some sim time as well. So, at the time I wasn't very, I was only running 7 races for Toyota Racing and Venerini Motorsports last year. So that's most of the reason why. And now I'm a little bit more heavy on the schedule side, and I'm also doing the stuff with Kyle, like I mentioned. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. But it's very packed up. It's hard to find a slot unless you're, a very big part of the Venerini Motorsports, KBM, Joe Gibbs Racing, any team like that, Hattori as well. They're in there a lot. So it's really tough to get some time, and you got to be pretty deep in the program to get it consistently.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break here. We'll be back in just a moment to spend some more time with one of the young guns in the sport, Cory Heim. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. Welcome back to The Skinny. We're talking to Cory Heim, one of the Toyota development drivers. He's off to an incredible start here, leading in the points here in the ARCA series, looking for his first ARCA championship. However, that points battle is very tight, just a skinny 4-point lead right now over the very tough Ty Gibbs, but we look forward to the great racing between these two young guns and the rest of that series as well. When we talk about Ty Gibbs and Gibbs Racing and Venturini, that's all Toyota. It's Toyota family, but you guys are vicious competitors, right? Nobody's really sharing anything behind the scenes in the trailers.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we all get along pretty well. Me and Ty, every weekend pretty much have a close race for the most part. There's been a couple weekends where he's been a little bit ahead of us as far as speed, but, when you race this close together every weekend, it's hard to like the other guy, you know what I mean? Just, you obviously want to win every race you compete in, and, Ty's been really good this year. So I think I'm a mutual friend to him, but, for the most part, Joe Gibbs Racing and Venturini Motorsports are fierce competitors, and there's no bad blood out of the racetrack by any means, but we definitely want to beat each other every week, and sometimes that just makes you a little bit sour when you don't get it done. So that's really all it comes down to.
Yeah, that competitive side, and if you didn't have it, you wouldn't be successful. So certainly understand all that, man. Hey, let's talk a little bit more about this sim situation that you're in. Are you being paid? Are you a paid sim driver at this point? Is that something that I hear people are almost making a career out of doing sim work for these teams?
No, for the most part, I'm just trying to do everything I can to help KBM and Venturini Motorsports better their team. Most of it for me is for Venturini Motorsports, of course, because the better work I do for them, the more successful I'm going to be on the racetrack, and that's going to correlate to hopefully more opportunities down the road. And same thing with KBM. Really, if I can really impress those guys and try to make them realize that I can be a good setup guy, and my feedback is good and everything like that. That could lead to more opportunities down the road. So that's why I do it, and it's kind of just part of my job. It's not really a side gig for me by any means. I just try to better KBM and better Venturini Motorsports in any way I possibly can.
So I also hear that a big reason for your success is you're really good with info to come back to the engineers with data info. When did you start really feeling a car? Like, when did you know what you wanted in a car? How early on did it make sense to you?
Yeah, it definitely took me a little while. It's for the most part in the first year of me racing pro and super late models, I was just kind of hanging on. It really depended on the racetrack and how good my equipment was, not really how good of a driver I was. Like, I wasn't, when I first started, I wasn't going to take a 10th place race car and finish 5th with it. If I had a 10th place race car, my peak was 10th place. But over the years, I've kind of learned how to drive a race car a little bit better and get that feedback to where I can really perfect a race car throughout a weekend. So now I feel like I can take an okay race car and finish really well with it. But, for the most part this year, we've had really good race cars, and I've just been able to finish, well with them in general. So it's hard to make up a lot of ground with the race car, but over the years I've really adapted to try to get my feedback better and try to do everything I can for my crew chief, my car chief, and engineers and everything like that to try to better themselves and also better me on the racetrack as well.
So the crew chiefs that you've worked with here in your early days, for the most part, or maybe all the way along the way, do they tell you what they're doing to the car so that it'll make sense to you initially? Let's just say you start picking up and you say, okay, the car's tight or the car's loose, and you don't necessarily know what adjustment you want to make to the car yet. So they tell you what they're going to do, and then you start piecing the puzzle together, and now you're to the point where you might make suggestions as to what you think would work best.
Yeah, when I first started, it was a lot about just driver development and trying to get my driving side of things first. So, I would tell them how the car felt and, what I needed it to do better. But for the most part, it was the crew chief telling me, like, hey, man, like, you can drive it into three a little bit harder, for example, or you can get off a four better, things like that, more than just what I can do better as far as feedback. And, I think that's pretty understood throughout motorsports. When a driver's first starting in a car, they're not going to know everything about it. So, and there's going to be a lot left on the racetrack as a driver to make up a little bit, or at least for me it was, because I didn't have any experience beforehand. So, as the years have gone by, my feedback's gotten a lot better. My driving, of course, has gotten a lot better too. So I think I've figured out a lot of the things that I was doing wrong as far as a driver. So now I'm leaning towards how can I make my feedback better? How can I overall just improve myself as a driver and overall improve myself as, a person to relay information to the engineers and crew chiefs as well. So, of course, there's always room to be better. I have a lot of work to do if I want to make it one day, but I'd like to think that I came a long way since I first started.
Yeah, I love your humble approach for sure. And it's an interesting point that you brought up there, because that opportunity I don't believe is there in sports car racing per se, whenever you can't see all the turns, on a big track like a Watkins Glen or whatever it may be. Whenever you say your crew chief could tell you to drive in a little bit deeper in this turn or get off at this turn a little bit harder, that's not always an option for a lot of other crew chiefs. But with the guys that you're working with, they have just massive amounts of experience, and they can see it. So it's funny, because I'm just not used to that side of it, where a crew chief can actually tell the driver, hey, you need to be a little bit better, or you can do a little bit better here to really help develop you, and then you come back with a little bit of information. He can help develop the car, and that's magical, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think in the late model ranks, a good crew chief sets himself apart or herself apart from the rest of the crew chiefs just by being a good driver coach as well. Those young drivers that first start out in late models and that need someone by their side to tell them what they need to do better without, completely criticizing them. Of course, a constructive criticism is the way to go for a young driver, because you don't want to completely make them lose their confidence. And I think I had a really good, crew chief when I first started in late models, Matt Drake and Lee Pulliam. Mostly, Lee Pulliam did a really good job on the late model stock side, and then Matt Drake on the super late model side. So I had two different people in my ear kind of telling me two different approaches, and I was just double the information and double the, ways to make me better throughout my years in late models. So, like I mentioned, like that really sets them apart from just normal crew chiefs. And that's kind of led to my fast progression through the late model stuff, and also ARCA a little bit as well.
So, for example, Toyota, Lexus's GTD program, that sports car program, those guys live and die on data, so they can come back off of the truck and they can compare all the drivers, what they're doing on each turn. Who's getting through this turn better, why, entry, mid-corner, exit, whatever the case may be, whatever gear they're using. There's a plethora of data because of the electronics, but you guys don't have access to any of that, do you? Do you ever have data that, even during your test days, or do you have data that you can look at?
So really the main thing that we use, since it's just kind of an oval racetrack, a little bit more simple than maybe a road course that, the Lexus stuff races at, we have something called Dartfish. And basically what that is it overlays you and a race car that is better than you. And it basically is like a ghost car. So it'll show you exactly where that car is beating you at the exact point on the racetrack. And all it does is just show one of your best laps against one of the best of the other guys' laps, and that shows you exactly where they're beating you, exactly where you're beating them, and just the areas that you could possibly be better. And that's really helped me a little bit throughout the years, and we have to pay for it, which is completely fine, because I think that's going to help me develop, and I think that's helped me understand how those good guys are so good and what they do better as far as just purely putting a lap together. And of course, there's a lot left on the table as far as racecraft and just, simple things on restarts that people do that make them, set them apart from the competition. But, there's some technology that we can use to kind of help us understand where the car or the driver might be better throughout a lap.
So explain that to me a little bit more, if you will, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. It's probably more the case here. But if you go on to that app or that site, whatever the case may be, do they have everybody? I mean, if your time is there, if Ty wants to look at your time, he can look at your time. If you want to look at Ty's time, it's there, or anybody else in the field?
Yeah, so generally they have a couple of people with cameras on top of like where a spotter would be, and they will videotape every good car. I mean, there's a couple cars that aren't really worth videotaping unless you're part of that Dartfish program and you pay to be part of that program. But all the good cars will get recorded, and they will overlay another car, whatever car you really want. So if they're able to videotape that lap and catch that lap, you can request to be overlaid with that car. So if they have it on camera, it's available for you to use. Just you request it, and then they'll send it to you over email, and you can watch exactly where they're beating you or where you're beating them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, cool stuff for sure. Let's talk about your truck debut, man. Congratulations at Darlington with Kyle Busch, and again, you talked about Marty Lindley, and rumor mill has it that Marty speaks very highly of you. Is very, very pleased with your feedback, and that's what those guys want, man. I mean, they want a driver that's going to come back and help them with good information. So that's great news. I'm glad Marty's really happy with you. That will certainly pay dividends with Kyle. But man, you make your debut at Darlington and in a position to win that thing late in the race.
Yeah, that was really a surreal experience for me. I had really no expectations going into the race. Of course, I wanted to do really good and impress people, and I'd like to think for the most part I did pretty well until we wrecked, of course. But before that, we were running really well. We started deeper in the field. I think we started 15th-ish in that range, and then we kind of made our way up slowly. It was honestly a slow start for me. Marty started me on the tighter side, the more secure side of things, and I struggled with the car in the first 15 to 20 laps, and then we pretty much got it dialed in right from there. Marty made the perfect adjustment on the first stage, and I think we finished in the top 10 in the first stage and in the top 3 in the second stage. So we were slowly working our way up there, and then we wrecked out later in the race. But for the most part, it was an awesome experience, and it's definitely something I'll never forget.
Yeah, so the fans that are listening in, help explain that just a little bit more, and I'm certainly very familiar with it as well, but you just said you started off a little bit on the tight side, the safer side of things, and it is better for a driver to come in with a car it's a little bit tight, just doesn't want to really turn versus coming in loose, correct?
Yeah, I would say so, just depending on the racetrack, and I think for my situation, it was definitely better to be on the tight side because I'd never been in the truck before, never been at Darlington before. So to have a tighter
You guys
race
had
car,
no practice and no qualifying, right? I forgot to throw that in there. You just get to go.
Yeah, we had no practice, no qualifying. I never raced a truck or practiced a truck before, never been to Darlington either. But the practice that I did get was in the Toyota Sim. So I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, I've never seen the racetrack before. Like, yeah, I did do some sim stuff. I did run the truck in the sim. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't beat actual in-truck or in-car experience, but it did help me a little bit. But, like I was saying, like we were making a lot of gains, we were getting up to the field, and then the wreck kind of took us out of it, of course, but it was a really cool experience.
That is pretty amazing. No practice time, no qualifying time, just get in the car, or the truck in this case, and let them throw the green flag. Good luck, man. Have fun. So that's pretty wild.
Pretty much.
Thanks to the pandemic for that. We got some new exciting rules, right? So as I watch those trucks compete, and I really do like to watch, I hate the fact that they wreck so much, and it slows the excitement and the pace of the event down. But I love to watch those guys when they get really racy at the same time. So you live and die by the sword, right? But it seems to me like those trucks really move around a lot, man. I mean, like a lot more than an Xfinity car or a Cup car or an ARCA car. Did you have that sensation?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely way more on edge than I expected. They run the same motor package with just a little bit more horsepower, so they're unrestricted, but pretty much the same thing as an ARCA car, for the most part. And I expected it to be somewhat similar handling wise, but those things were very on edge and very, very aero sensitive as well. So that was something to get used to. I think it took me most of the first stage to kind of figure that out. But, racing for the 51 truck with Kyle Busch Motorsports was just kind of, I couldn't have been in a better situation for that race. So the fact that we did as good as we did was awesome, but I feel like it was a little bit expected to just kind of go up there and run well. And, that's what we did. But, at the same time, we were very little experience driver wise. And, I had never worked with Marty before either. So it was a little bit of a challenge to kind of get used to that. And, having the same crew chief throughout the entire 2021 season so far, and then switching it up for that one race was a little bit difficult, but I feel like me and Marty bonded really well with all the sim stuff that we did, and we kind of meshed really well for the race as well. So for the most part, it was comfortable as soon as I could, kind of figure it out and kind of figure out all the different things that were different than an ARCA car. But like you mentioned, they're very on edge. They move around a lot, and that was something to get used to.
So let me ask you a quick question, and it might just be obvious. Once you get clean air, you get a better read on the truck. But if you're in a situation, like you said, I think you said start off 15th, 16th, whatever the case may be, and the truck was a little bit tight at the beginning of the race, but with all that aero that's going on there, when do you determine, okay, the truck is tight, or I was just too close to the guy in front of me, man? I just didn't have any air on the nose of this thing to help me get it turned. How do you determine when it's mechanical grip or when it's aero?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how spaced out you are, and a lot of that just comes with experience. So my feedback might have not been the best in the first race, but I mean, the first pit stop, we hit it right on the dot for the next restart. So I guess it was, I think Marty kind of knew what the other trucks had in their trucks that made them so good in the beginning of the race. Like the 18 and the 4 truck were really good to fire off. So I think he might have resorted to something similar to them, but he did start me off tighter because I was a new driver and I had that lack of experience. So, but like you mentioned, it is kind of hard to judge, how your mechanical grip is versus your aerodynamical grip, and what is it actually? What are you actually struggling with, right? So I've learned a little bit about that in ARCA, and the differences between those two. But late models, you don't really get a very good read on any aerodynamics, as they're not very sensitive in that department. So ARCA, I've learned most of that, and if it wasn't for the ARCA experience, I have pretty much no idea what I was talking about. So that's helped a little bit, but the trucks are definitely more aero sensitive than the ARCA cars are.
Yeah, man, like driving a brick, right? I mean, they're pushing a lot of air.
Yeah, no doubt.
So you kind of touched on this a little bit, showing up at a truck race with KBM. That brings some real pressure with it, in that scenario, because you show up in one of those trucks on that program. You don't get to get in that program unless you've shown some real talent, and B, the equipment is going to be good. So you're expected to have some results. I mean, right off the bat, and it doesn't really matter who you are. That's some real pressure.
Yeah, the pressure's there for sure. I feel like as far as my preparation goes, like that's mostly all it comes down to. Like if you prepare well and you're really in the right mindset for the race, like there's no reason you can't go out there and do well. And also another thing that you have to keep in mind is like you have to make sure you do everything you can. And if something happens that's out of your control, like Toyota knows that, like they're not gonna, if you finish like I finished 22nd in the truck race, but I think most of that was out of my control, you know what I mean? And like they realized that. So my main thing has just been keeping everything in control that I possibly can, and just preparing really well, staying hydrated, making my diet good, working out, everything like that. And also making sure I do as much sim as I can off the racetrack and watching a lot of film as well. So, as long as I'm really focused and committed to the program, I think, the results will kind of find themselves, which this year they have so far. So I'm hoping to, keep this momentum up and finish up the year strong.
Let's pause for a moment here to take a quick break. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. you're working very, very hard in the background. I mean, a lot of people think race car drivers, they go out and they drive on the weekend and then they do whatever they want during the week. It's not a very hard gig, but it couldn't be further from the truth, especially when you're dealing with the heat. But you're on the full plan, right? I mean, you are eating extremely healthy. You're in a full workout program. All the things that are expected from Toyota that they would want their drivers to be doing.
Yeah, and I've really struggled with diet. Throughout high school, I gained a lot of weight. I was very overweight. Ever since I kind of realized that if I want to make it one day, I'm going to have to get in shape and start working out and eating healthy. That's when I started to get a little bit committed. So that all started for me in 2019. I lost a lot of weight, and I was still kind of on the heavier side. So as soon as I got into the Toyota program, I found the nutritionist over there, Stephanie. She does a really good job. I'm not the skinniest person in the world right now, but I've come a really long way, and I'm still making progress towards my goals. So Toyota's done an awesome job of supplying us, all the tools we need. We have a lot of really healthy snacks here at the gym. I'm actually here at the gym right now. If you hear some sound in the background, sorry about that. But I'm here at the gym now. We have a lot of healthy snacks here. We get shakes after our workouts. And, of course, I mentioned the nutritionist as well. She does an awesome job keeping us in shape and making sure that we have everything we need as far as our preferences as well, because, I think we all know eating healthy isn't easy. So she tries to do her best to make it easy for us and do everything she can to make it enjoyable and not just, sometimes you have to dread eating healthy.
So how cool is it to be in the gym there? Who do you end up working out with? I mean, Denny Hamlin go walking through every now and again, or Kyle Busch? I mean, you're working out with these guys?
No, they have their own little plan at their house, I think. But we got guys here in the Xfinity Series. Harrison Burton works out here all the time. Daniel Hemrick, Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell. I find myself working out with like Drew Dollar a lot, and some of the guys that are in the ARCA Series, like Chandler Smith. Of course, he's trucks now, but people that I know, they group you with better, and people that you know better, they'll group you with just because it makes the workout a lot more enjoyable if you can be personable with the people that you're working out with. So. Me and Drew get along really good, and we work out with each other all the time. Chandler, Derek Krause, people like that. They've been walking back and forth down the aisle right here all the time, just waving at me. So, we're all really good friends here at the gym, and I think we're gonna really only have two people working out at the same time, so you don't really see like a bunch of people in here at the same time. But you definitely bump shoulders with most of the Toyota drivers here during the week.
Yeah, that's super cool, and that camaraderie is what you build, right? And I'm sure those relationships also pay dividends. You're chatting with them about your experiences. They're giving a little bit back to you about their experiences, and you pick up little tidbits here and there.
Yeah, and I think that's really big for me at the Darlington race. I find myself talking to pretty much everyone that's possibly ever even raced there, just because you pick up on these little tiny pieces of information that could really go a long way in the race. Like I remember talking to Bubba Wallace a bunch about it. A little bit of John Hunter Nemechek was in here one day, and I talked to him about it. And there was just a little bit of information there that I wouldn't have learned if I was maybe still living in Georgia or hadn't come to the gym that day or something like that. So. Those little pieces of information, just maybe a simple workout can go a long way for your future. So it's been really good to be a part of the Toyota program and just being able to talk to those guys.
It's been great picking your brain here, man, and figuring out where you started and certainly where you're at now. Go ahead and tell us what your goals are. Give us a little bit of a timeline. What do things look like for you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, as far as timeline goes, I'm not really sure. Of course, I want to continue my NASCAR career, and I think my main goal is to just be a successful race car driver one day. And just, I know this might be kind of uncommon to say, but I just don't want to live with any regrets. I don't want to look back at this year and say like, man, if I just did this one thing, or if I did better in this one race or this one year, I could have maybe made it. Like every weekend I want to execute and go out there and try to do the best I possibly can. So I live life with no regrets. And, as I mentioned, I want to be a successful race car driver one day, whether that be in the Cup Series or, hopefully the Cup Series, of course, is the main goal. But as long as I'm successful and as long as I'm happy with what I'm doing, that's what I want to do for my career.
Quick question for you here. As a motorsports broadcaster for 20 plus years, I'm curious if Toyota or anybody, for that matter, has sent you off to a public speaking class.
Not yet. I've actually considered it. I'm not the greatest public speaker right now, but I've definitely come a long way over the years, just being able to be here and talk to people in person, and just kind of put myself out there a little bit. And all the interviews I've done in the past, 2 or 3 years have been kind of helping me a lot. So, 3 years ago, I was definitely considering it because my first like 4 or 5 interviews in late models were honestly just horrendous. So, my parents talked to me about it at some point. So I almost signed up at one point. So, like I said, I'm not the greatest public speaker. I still stutter sometimes here and there, but definitely come a long way, and I think I'm still improving on that.
Well, let me tell you something, my friend. Relax. You've got it covered. You're a phenomenal speaker. You're a great interview. And hey, man, everybody's a little timid whenever they first get that camera stuck in front of them. It's just an awkward feeling, But if the broadcaster or the pit reporter does their job, they get you a question that makes you feel comfortable, and then you fall right in line. But you've been a fabulous interview, man. You are a great speaker, and I'm not blowing smoke, dude. If it wasn't there, I just wouldn't say anything at all. But no, you're an excellent speaker, and man, your future is certainly very bright. I would expect nothing less. I mean, listen, Jack Irving and the gang at Toyota. They're the best at what they do, so they don't just grab anybody. You've got to be somebody that's capable of the full package. And looking at you, obviously the success behind the wheel of the race car, the way you look and the way you're taking care of yourself, the way you've made those changes, the way you speak on camera, your results currently inside of ARCA and already what you're doing in the trucks. I mean, you're right on par, man. I think you're a phenomenal young man, and we really look forward to watching your career develop.
Man, I really appreciate that. It makes me feel good about myself. But no, I couldn't agree with you more. Jack Irving and all those guys at Toyota, like they do a really good job of, just developing me as a driver, developing me on and off the racetrack. I've come a long way as far as, like I mentioned earlier, just the physical side of it and just the entire outlook on my race weekend. Like when I was in Georgia, racing for Chad Bryan in 2019 in ARCA, I really wasn't able to be at the shop much, like I mentioned earlier, and I would show up to the racetrack, just kind of didn't seem right. I just didn't seem like I was logged in. I was kind of still just, I had so many questions that I had built up over the week that I was, just not really mentally prepared to go out and race the race. Of course, we had practice back then in qualifying, and we had a little bit more time to kind of get used to it. But being at the shop all week and, just talking to the guys at Venturini Motorsports or KBM or, whatever team it may be, just really, really helps me get mentally prepared for the race. And I think that's, 99% of it is just being mentally prepared, and then you go out and execute after that. So it's been awesome ever since I've been up here. I live in Davidson now, probably 5-10 minutes from the gym. I can probably make it here in 5 minutes. So whoever I need to talk to, if I'm going through something or just struggling with my mentality, I can come here and talk to Caitlin Quinn, any of the people here that work their butts off to make us better.
Super, super cool, man. Well, thank you very much for taking the time. We'll keep our eyes on you as your career continues on. And certainly this year, I don't know if I want to say it's a David versus Goliath thing there in ARCA, because Venturini is certainly not a David, but still the task will be tall. The battle will be very, very tough, and that's what we love about motorsports, right? It's gonna be a good, close battle all the way to the very end. So we wish you nothing but the best of luck. And again, thank you for taking the time to join us here on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on today. It was great talking to you.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Cory Heim, and now you know the Skinny on the young man trying to make a name for himself. Thanks for being with us here on the Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.